All right, guys, we are going to continue on to panel number 4. And in this talk, we're going to shift gears and talk about collaboration. So we're going to be talking about how partnerships between corporates and startups accelerate innovation and sustainability. To help us tackle this topic, first, I would love to invite the moderator for this panel, Massimo Muzzi, Head of Strategy, Business and Development and Sustainability, Electrification at ABB. Thank you, Massimo. Up next, we have Olga Peters, Head of Motion Ventures at ABB. Welcome, Olga.
Hi, everyone.
Then we have Todd, Sustainability Advisory Services, Global Business Leader, Electrification Service at ABB. Welcome, Lee. Then we have Barbara Panella, Global Technology Manager, Distribution Solutions Division, Electrification at ABB. Welcome, Barbara.
Thank you.
Next, we have Niko Railo, Head of Business Development, Strategy and Portfolio, Smart Power Division at ABB. Welcome, Niko. And then we have Jason Massey, Founder and CEO at Ndustrial. Let's have a great talk, guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our panel. We'll talk about collaboration between startups and large corporates to solve one of the most pressing challenges of our society, which is the energy transition. My name is Massimo Muzzi. I look after strategy, business development, and sustainability for ABB. ABB is a large Swiss corporate that helps industry outrun in a leaner and cleaner way. And that's why we are here as the sponsor of the Startup Innovation for the Energy Tech Summit. We're here for 2 reasons. The first one is that we love to work with startups, and we will talk about this with our panel. We do work with startups in very different ways. We collaborate with startups. We co-develop products and bring them to markets. We create and incubate our own startups, as well as we act as a client, as a customer for startups. And last but not least, we invest in startups. We have been investing since more than 10 years, and roughly $500 million have been invested in startups so far. So we strongly believe in working with startups. We fundamentally believe that the energy transition, the decarbonization is too large of a challenge for a corporate to solve alone, and that's why we need to collaborate with the most brilliant minds in the technology. The second reason why we sponsored this and we are happy to work with startups is that fundamentally ABB was a startup at the beginning, 140 years ago. I will claim it was an energy tech startup from the beginning. So I will tell you our story. Imagine Switzerland 140 years ago. It was a very different country than what it is today. There were no banks, no chocolate, no pharmaceutical companies. Yes, some cheese. Yes, there were tariffs at that time, some similarities, but a very different situation. And so one engineer and one salesperson, the B and the B of the ABB name, Mr. Brown and Mr. Boveri, they were having lunch at the canteen of their factory in Zurich and dreaming about electrifying Switzerland, bringing electrical mobility into Switzerland already 140 years ago. And so while they were talking about this new idea of distributing high voltage in a more efficient way, they were proposing this to their management, asking for funds to start their new products, but they were getting a no as an answer. And so they took a big leap and decided to leave the company they were working for and start their own venture. And I'm sure many of you will recognize in this story, but how do you finance a startup in Switzerland 140 years ago? They reached out to banks, they reached out all over Europe for funds. There were no VC, there were no angel investors. It was a very different environment, and they were keeping getting a no. And again, I'm sure many of you keep getting no's, but never give up and continue to try and try until they found Somebody who wanted to give them money was the father-in-law of Mr. Boveri, who granted them 500,000 Swiss francs at that time. And with this, they started a company, and they started to market this converter of high voltage. The product was so successful that eventually they acquired the company they were working for, and today our headquarters is still located in this location. And still today, 140 years ago, I feel every day the spirit of innovation and working with startups. Every day I come to ABB, and that's what motivates me to bring forward my work. With this, I would like to start the panel with a great question to Olga. Olga, you lead Motion Ventures. Tell us more about the ABB way of working. I heard it's a decentralized way of working, and why this is successful and important for startups.
Great question. Hi, everyone. So 4 or 5 years ago, ABB changed from being a very centralized organization to decentralized. We call it ABB Way. What that actually means is that every single business, which we call a division, is actually empowered and accountable for the operations, decisions, resources, investment decisions, everything what they decide they have to execute for their performance. All the functions, such as ventures as well, got decentralized into different business areas. So we have this unique setup. There are a few other corporates that also do it this way, that their venture teams are decentralized. They sit and take care, dedicate themselves to every of the single businesses. That has a really great advantage for us, for startups that work with us, as well as for customers, because all the decisions about the innovation are taken by the businesses who know what the customers need. So what we do as a ventures team, we regularly talk with our divisions. We ask, what are the capability gaps? What are the innovation needs that you would like to partner, collaborate with startups? And then we identify the companies, introduce them, and support to find the way how we can create value together. So it's not only about making financial investments for the return, it's actually much more for building value together, bringing it to the customers through our channels to market, giving startups sharing our expertise, access to our labs, doing experiments with them, and bringing the products together to the market at much higher scale. So it's really a win-win. If startups are successful, our investments are also successful, right? So that's a great advantage. And maybe some more technical details. The investments are done from the balance sheet of the divisions, and that brings a higher sense of accountability and actually making sense out of these investments, doing something with the startups, not just invest and let them be there for until they exit or something like this. It also gives a much longer term horizon and more patience and more investment of our people with the industry experience to share with the startups.
Yeah. And in fact, tonight we're going to host our Startup Challenge together with Motion and Electrification here in Bilbao. I'm very happy and look forward to meet the winners later tonight. Thanks, Olga. Lee, you lead our advisory business in electrification service. I remember very well how this started as what we call a corporate incubator a few years ago. Tell us about the story and how it came up and how it developed.
Yeah, and thanks for the question there, Massimo. The business that we have, which is advisory services, started on a very simple premise, and that was that we need to provide for our customers clear, simple, agnostic advice on the electrical infrastructure that they have on site. And that leads us to create 3 pillars of the advisory business. The first one, which is reliability. And reliability covers, for example, power system studies, power engineering. We then have safety, Safety is all about ensuring that the customer's sites are operating in a safe way and that the people are working in safe practices. We have cyber security, and that's around complying with the latest standards, so NIST, NIST2, IEC 62443. And then, of course, we move on to energy and carbon. Energy and carbon is the pillar where we do battery energy storage as a service, where we help customers with energy transition, where we move customers to a net zero position, including things like hourly accounting. But all of that is about enabling customers to improve their availability, their predictability, and their sustainability. In short, we do well as a business when we do good as a business. So, how do we do this? We work closely with customers to transition from being reactive to proactive and then to interactive. And moving their infrastructure to that interactive stage means that we need some skill sets that are not commonly found within ABB. So if you look at how the business started, to put your point on the incubator, we started by looking at what do we have today in the business, what are we short of in the business, and then looking at a very simple, pragmatic view of, do we make it? Do we create it ourselves as ABB? Do we buy it? Do we go out and find a company that does what we need to fill a gap? Or alternatively, do we work with venture capital and partners and startups where you bring innovation and speed to the business? And it's a combination of all three of those that have brought us to where we are today. And honestly, from a business perspective, this is the first incubation we've done as Electrification, and I think it's proved to be very successful, especially since, as Olga mentioned, the ABB way says that we do things in a division. We do things pragmatically as a division. With this, we leverage the business area to support and allowed us to create a sandbox environment to really be entrepreneurial and to drive speed and drive innovation in a different way than we would do normally as ABB. So, if I look at where the advisory business is moving to, when you think about customers today, customers are powering operations on industrial sites and they're having to make many decisions on the fly. They're making decisions such as, where do I use my energy? How do I use my energy? Do I buy energy from the grid? Do I use renewable sources? Do I trade energy from, for example, battery energy storage to the grid, or do I utilize it? And all these different things are complex decisions that customers have to make. And that's where it leads us to our first venture capital investment that we want to talk about. And that is a company based out of Ireland, a company called Grid Beyond, that is an AI-powered optimization company. They take data, discrete data from things like weather, energy markets, pricing and production needs, and then they use what we would describe as real-time strategies. So using AI, they drive what we call perfect foresight. And perfect foresight means that we can actually predict what's going to happen on the energy market in a half-hour slot to a very high level of probability. So we can make those decisions on, do we buy, do we sell, do we trade, very easily. A second startup that we invested in last year was a company that produces cybersecurity offline assessments. And that company allows us to be able to look at the posture of not only one location, but multiple locations in full compliance to the standards, as I mentioned before, NIST, NIST2, 62443, the IEC standard. But it allows it to be done in a non-intrusive way. And that allows us then to be able to be very quick in giving recommendations, actions, and allowing them to create a new posture on site that is compliant with the prevalent standard. We also then made an acquisition last year as part of the advisory business, which was an acquisition called Seam Group in the US. And they're a business that basically provides reliability and safety services for hotels globally, food and beverage sites locally, and DIY stores globally. And a lot of those are the names that you know and love. And lastly, let me talk about our investment and partnership with Ndustrial. We have Jason here who leads this AI-powered energy intensity business that we work with and invested in. And, you know, at the risk of making Jason blush a little bit, you know, Jason and his team bring a very unique and innovative solution. They take data from weather, they take data from process automation, they take data from the meter at the intake point. In addition to that, they're taking data such as temperature inside a warehouse, discrete metering points, and then putting all that together to make the decisions that allow you to understand, what do I do with energy at a certain point? How do I maybe curtail energy? But I'll let Jason talk a little bit more about that as we go through the panel discussion.
I mean, I'd say the fact that Lee can pitch my company better than I can is a good indication that the partnership is working. And very simply, there's lots of energy management software in the marketplace. And what we found was in the industrial manufacturing world, every facility is a unique snowflake. There's an equation that we're all trying to find per facility, right? Whether that's blast freezing chicken in a cold storage warehouse, recycling tires. Our job to pull a lot of this data together is to find that context. And so the KPI that we care the most about, and Lee was describing, is this energy intensity per unit. What's the kilowatt hours per widget made in a factory, or 1,000 pounds of food frozen? Come to find out, that's actually really hard to get, because you need to bring a lot of disparate data sources together, whether it's the warehouse management system, refrigeration control system, add new meters, add new sensors. And so I know there's a lot of talk around AI at conferences like this. We like to say that AI is only as good as the data that you provide it. And so there's just a lot of dirty data plumbing that has to happen in this market for those insights, for those automations to take place. And to ABB's credit, before we even signed a commercial agreement, they put 3 of their factories into the mix: Singapore, Zurich, and kind of in our backyard of North Carolina. Those sites up to install meters, to run the experiments, just to make sure that this works, so that we can work out all the scaling challenges that startups have to go through. And we've started to see successes in the Florence, South Carolina site, where the metering has helped expose air compressors that are running on weekends that don't need to run. Insights into how they run HVAC in their warehouse, and is that HVAC system running too hard, and should they add another unit to kind of levelize out the energy? And then we also learned some scaling challenges, like IoT, you have to have Internet and Things. Those have to connect. So are we connecting over the Wi-Fi network? Are we putting in a private cellular network? Again, all this great software doesn't work unless you're feeding it with the data. And so it was nice to kind of work out some of the kinks and some of the challenges by ABB putting their plants up for experimentation. So thank you.
No, thanks, Jason. And just imagine this. Imagine if you were talking to the CEO of a biscuit factory, cookies if you're American, or you are talking to a pharmaceutical company about tablets coming off the end of a production line. How cool would it be if you could tell them the exact energy and carbon intensity of a single biscuit or a single cookie or a single tablet coming off the end of a production line at a single second in time? That is the level that we can get to.
Lee, I'm really proud and impressed by everything you've done. And Jason, thanks for coming here. We have invited you to give a candid perspective on your collaboration with ABB. How has ABB had an impact for Industrial, and what could have been done differently?
Just the scale, I mean, is the easiest thing to say. Is I think it's naive, any startup, especially in the energy and clean tech space, to believe that they're going to be able to do this alone. You need the scale of an ABB. And
we need your intelligence and your brilliant people.
Yeah, and so there's, we'll talk a lot about speed and scale and how that kind of comes together. But I mean, we see it as, we know we can go across other verticals, broader into food and beverage. So ABB gives us an awesome channel for that. Even in verticals that we've already done really well in, like cold chain, and we've deployed globally in that vertical. ABB helps us to get into markets that like India, that we haven't really looked at or been able to scale into. We're still a 60-person company at the end of the day, and so having the scale of ABB has been super important. And then back to what we were talking about, the actually doing the hard work, going in and working with sites, figuring out these challenges for scale has been super important in the relationship.
Thanks, Jason. Glad to hear. Barbara, you are the CTO of our distribution solution division, and I know you work a lot with startups. What are the themes, the priorities? What are your experience working with startups for electrical distribution?
Yeah, so first, before I get there, and where we work also with startup, let me explain a little bit the trends that are influencing also our business. And as you know, we are going into decarbonization, net zero future. This means also that we need to electrify many segments. So electrification of data centers, of buildings, of transportation, of industries. So the electrical demand is increasing continuously. On top of this, as we heard also in the previous panel, we need to integrate renewables. And so we are moving from a centralized generation of electricity to a decentralized. And clearly, even if we have this evolution of the grid needs to be reliable. That's the most important thing, but it also needs to become more flexible. And this is exactly where we see the potential to work with startup, because we believe that this is only manageable through digitalization of the grid. So, and we want to expand also our digital portfolio as ABB, as Electrification Distribution Solution. And this is only possible when we can also work with an ecosystem of partners and especially startups that can provide digital solution that we can implement and or combine with our product portfolio. And here one example is also our collaboration with Energield. It's a startup company, a spin-off from the Chalmers University. They are here also with their booth, and they are present also on our booth. And they provide AI-based fault prediction solution that we can implement in our protection and control products. And this really helps our customers, utility customers, but also industrial customers, to have a more precise and also predictable maintenance of their equipment. And you can imagine that this is very powerful if our customers can avoid outages, can avoid faults. And this is exactly the kind of collaboration that we see can strengthen our portfolio and our way to digitalize the grid. And typically when we work with startups, here we always include also customers, because this energy transition is happening very fast. So we need also to understand exactly what customer wants, and we do it together with the startup. So it's like a winning triangle, ABB, startup, and customer, to be fast in this process. So this is an area where we work with startup and where we see a lot of value, the digitalization of the grid. So if there are startups that work with software solution that can help to make the grid more reliable, more flexible, we are there at the booth, so come and connect to us. But also another area where we are very interested to work with startup, and this is also the topic of this year's Startup Challenge, is in the automation of the engineering of our product. We want to be faster to bring our products on the market, especially because we want to be fast in this energy transition. And this is exactly where we see potential to work with startup that can help us to automate our engineering, our configuration of our products that we can bring on the market. So also here, I would also kindly ask people who have this kind of startup with this competence to connect to us.
Thanks, Barbara. Niko, you lead digital and strategy for Smart Power, one of our most successful and largest division. You've been with ABB forever, probably from the beginning. How do you work with startups in energy management and sustainability?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, I think partnershiping with startup, like you heard already today, is a key part of our AI strategy, especially on energy management. And I can take another example. You know, we have the Startup Challenge running every year. Last year, winner Edgecombe, which is in Toronto-based startup, which is helping industrial and commercial customers will reduce the peak power of the network. I mean, it's a traditional problem, we all know, but so far there has been not so good solutions for the customers. They are really using advanced AI-based interface and solution, and now we are integrated with ABB IoT dataset. So our teams are really working together with them, that they have access to our customer dataset, while they can give their value proposition to the customer. So it's really a win-win situation. So we integrate their solution to ABB offering, while they get access to our customer base globally, and also more visibility. So it's really good example of how we concretely can work with startups. And also we did also investment to that startup last year
Yes.
also.
And this year?
Yeah, so I think another example is a SensorFact company, a startup which was very fastly scaling up and still is very fastly scaling up, helping especially SMEs or small, medium enterprises, industrial customers with their really unique smart sensor and platform solution. What is really important, it's so simple that the end user can do the installation by themselves. Because we all know what is the basic problem, like we heard, you need the data, you need quality data. So this startup has the full solution, including the hardware and software, and it's really scaling fast. And actually we acquired the company a few months ago. But what is really important is that we will keep it running as our own company, a startup which continue scaling within ABB. And this is really important, and that then we can keep the speed of the company, so not integrating actually to the ABB. Only bringing our channel to the market, to the startup, and consistent funding that they can hunt their mission, which is really reduce the industrial waste, is their mission. So we want to help them to grow fast. So these
Niko,
are like good examples.
Working with digital startups is very easy.
Yeah.
But what about hardware? Do you also invest in hardware startups and collaborate with them?
Yeah, we have a few examples, and I think the last one, what we published a few months ago, is a DG Matrix. It's a USA-based startup which is doing this kind of unique power router solution, which is really like a black box, multiple inputs and outputs based on modern power electronics with a high efficiency. But what is the clue here? It is really a device which can be the core of future power distribution network. We all know what is happening in the world. I mean, we need more power, energy transition. AI data centers, they are huge power demands. The traditional way of distributing power, let's say AC low voltage systems, this is maybe not the best solution for the future. So we are looking for hardware startups who really find new solutions to solve the problem of high energy demand. And DG Matrix is one of those. And it's also quite unique because we were from the beginning a seed investment as a strategic investor on this company. And we really want to help them to shape the industry together with ABB and helping them to grow very fast. And it's really exciting.
It's a game changer.
Yeah, it's a game changer. And we're really looking for also others like this.
So the moral is the really cool startups are in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So DG Matrix is next door to us. We know them really well. So everybody come to North Carolina to look for your energy tech startups.
Olga, tell us some other examples of game changers you have worked with in motion.
Well, just those that come to my mind are the recent ones that we established collaboration and done an investment. One is called Molg. It's a US-based startup. We got to know them on one of our past startup challenges, like the one we are running today. So they were actually not even fitting into the scope of the challenge. However, they really made us think of a different way how we are producing our products. And to adapt to the current world, to the conditions, to the external environment, it's difficult for a big company like us just to change the way we operate and produce things. But thanks to them, we found a way how to make our drives. So I'm from the motion business area. Motion is all about industrial electric motors and drives or power electronics. We say we keep the world running, moving as we save energy. So imagine that tomorrow the drives will be produced automatically in mini factories, robotic factories, and that enables our production to have circularity embedded into it, contributing to sustainability, being more flexible and localized. So that's one of the groundbreaking examples, and another one is Uptime AI, is a US and Indian-based company, and with their advanced AI algorithms, our customers can predict much more accurately and in advance any potential failures of this type of rotating machinery. And avoiding unplanned downtime also saves them a lot of money. So yeah, those are
I love your first example, because corporate typically think of working with startups to improve their products, their services, their solutions, but we can work, and we do work with startups also to improve our processes. So Olga's business is by far the #1 manufacturer of electric motors, electric drives in the world. So think how important it is to improve the manufacturing process, even by 1%, 2%, can have a great impact on one side on ABB performance, but on the other side also on the number of resources, materials, and energy that we use to manufacture our products. So ultimately a positive impact to the planet.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing this example. Jason, back to you. What advice would you give to startups that would like to partner
Don't be
with
scared.
larger corporations?
Yeah, don't be scared. I'm a recovering internet bubble VC that spent a decade in Silicon Valley, and I'm ashamed to admit it, but I'll do it here. Like, we used to make fun of corporate venture capital groups when I was a VC. They were too slow, they wanted weird exclusivity, and so we would advise startups stay away from the corporate VCs. And over the past decade, and I would even say over the last few years, and our experience with ABB is traditional VC is going through an inflection point where they're working through a lot of the indigestion of earlier investments. The gestation period of startups is, especially in energy tech, is longer. And so, they're still working through recaps, down rounds. They've got a lot of pressure from limited partners to get liquidity. And so when we take our experience with ABB, they were the fastest group in our kind of cohort of potential investors. They really drove the Series B for us. We just signed our commercial agreement, and I can tell you, like, the terms were fair. There was no weird, again, things that we all used to worry about with exclusivity and weird rights. It was very balanced in the grand scheme of things, and it's been a really pleasant experience. We again talk about speed and scale. Startups can bring a lot of that speed. Companies like ABB brings that scale. There's a legendary VC, I'm sure everybody knows, John Doerr at Kleiner Perkins, that wrote a book called Speed and Scale. And if we do this right, that's what we can achieve between good agile startup and a company like ABB. So don't be scared. They're nice. And you want the intent of a group like what we experienced with Lee and Matthew and team is they've got a vision for this. They are putting together an ecosystem, things that we would love to do in the future, but we're just so focused on the things that we can do right now that they've given us an opportunity where we're doing a lot of work now around fleet electrification and transport refrigeration units with warehouses, and these warehouses are tapped out of their capacity. They've brought things like Grid Beyond to the table where we could start to look at a more holistic solution for our customers. So that ecosystem is really important. So my advice, anybody talking not just with ABB, but other corporate venture capital, make sure they've got a vision for an ecosystem that fits with how you want to grow up as a company.
Thanks, Jason, for your participation. Now, last question, very quickly. Lee, what is the most interesting thing you learned working with startups?
I think that's a really interesting question. I think the first thing is, in the last 2 years, we've invested in several, and we've not invested in several startups. And what I mean by that is, we've created partnerships as well as investments. And the one thing that startups bring are speed, they bring agility, they bring innovation, and I think they also bring that ability to accelerate where we are today by developing joint solutions together. And if you think about where Niko was talking about hardware then, you know, one of the great things that we can do with both Ndustrial and Grid Beyond that I've mentioned is utilize our hardware and their AI systems to get more out of what we're doing from a service perspective with the customers and to generate real benefit and outcome to our customers.
Thank you, Lee. Barbara,
Yeah, so
what is your experience?
yeah, I mean, when it comes to R&D working with startup, it's clear that the win-win criteria is to have complementary competence there. I mean, we have a big R&D organization, and when we work with startup, we want to use competence that we don't have, right? And this is very important, that startup know exactly what is their key differentiation, what is their focus, and this helps us a lot then to find this complementarity. This is clear a win-win situation when we want to develop something in common. And the other point, I mean, since it's still R&D and we want to innovate, innovation is always connected also with failure. It can be connected with failure. So here, a very important thing is that when we work together with startup on a topic that might be challenging and might have some failure, that we fail fast. So speed is very important in the collaboration with startup, and this we learned also when we work with startup. So that's a very important point, that we want to succeed, but if we don't succeed, we want to fail fast. And last point, it's clearly we need to have a common vision how we want to go to the market and have a clear business plan together and how we want to approach the customer. This is what we learned from collaborating with startup.
Thanks, Barbara. Olga?
Well, if I may add to what my colleague said, totally agree with you. I think the key thing we learn is about pushing the boundaries. So startups really prove us that everything is impossible until it's done. And they just persevere, they push under the limited resources in a very efficient, effective way. They create challenging products with much less people, much less money, and they bring them, some of them, successfully to the market. So something we can really borrow, that type of attitude, that mindset from startups.
Fantastic. Thank you all for joining the panel. I hope we convinced you that we need to accelerate innovation to solve the energy transition challenge. Hope we convinced you that we cannot do it alone. We need to work with other companies, with other startups and scale-ups. And that's why we're here at the Energy Tech Summit. You can visit our booth number P9, but it's just here outside the door. Please come and talk to our experts, and let's join forces all together. Thank you all for listening to us, and have a great summit.
Yeah.